Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. It is a beautiful day in Northwest Arkansas. We are so excited to continue Steve Blair's series focusing on leadership and culture. And today, Steve's guest is Morgan Scholz, the VP of Human Resources from AcreTrader. Just a few housekeeping issues before we get started. First of all, this series and others is being presented by Westrock Coffee. With offices in 10 countries, the company sources coffee and tea from 35 origin countries. And for more information about this great organization, you can visit westrockcoffee.com. And this particular series is hosted by our friends Cameron Smith and Associates, and got some great things written, but I just can't say enough about this organization, the legacy, their contribution to the supplier community. And if you've not had an opportunity to get to know Scott Crossett and the team at Cameron Smith and Associates, I would encourage you to visit CSARecruiters.com. The last thing I'll share is that this is intended to be a conversation and not a presentation. So if you've got questions or insights to offer, we would encourage you to click the Q&A button built into Zoom and submit those questions and comments in writing. And then if there's any time left over at the end, we will stop recording, and Steve will give you the opportunity to unmute your microphone and maybe participate in some more open discussion. So we're excited that you're here, and let's get started.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Conversations on Leadership and Culture. My name is Steve Blair, and I have had the pleasure and honor of working for some pretty amazing organizations over the years, all of which had their own unique way of prioritizing a culture that is healthy and that allows people to thrive. And that's where I really find passion these days, is helping founders and leaders in companies really try to connect their values with their business, and then in turn have a culture that encourages people to show up as themselves, to show up whole, and a culture that is healthy and thriving. And many of my guests are organizations that are growing fast, and so it's really important as companies grow fast to be able to do that in a way that protects the essence of the company, which is the culture, while you grow. And that's not always easy. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm excited, and we started doing these conversations, is a chance to help founders and leaders do that. The name is Conversations on Retail, and particularly Conversations on Leadership and Culture. Many of our guests are from organizations that are in the CPG space, which is where I grew up, and or adjacent to the CPG space. But sometimes I have folks on the program that just work for amazing companies that have really healthy cultures, and I think they've got a really fun story to tell. And so Morgan Scholz, my friend Morgan. Good morning, Morgan.
Good morning.
Morgan is with a company called AcreTrader. I'm going to let Morgan tell you a little bit more about who they are. They are not necessarily in our retail space, but they are certainly in a market here in Northwest Arkansas that competes with the CPG space in terms of talent. And a healthy culture is certainly a key ingredient to attracting and retaining a healthy talent, or quality top talent. But they also have just an amazing story, a short so far. It's a fairly young company, but they've grown to over 100 people now, and they've done that in a way that is healthy and allows people to show up whole and thrive. And so I'm really excited to welcome Morgan to the show. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you, Steve. It's so good to be here.
I love it. So Morgan and I go back just a little bit, probably 5 or 6 years ago, when Morgan was with another small, fun company, founder-led and founder-owned here in Northwest Arkansas. And they were asking her to kind of dabble in the people and culture side and kind of bring some priority to those areas. You and I had a couple of rounds of coffee and got to have some conversations. And then since then, Morgan has gone on to join the Startup Junkie organization, helping startups navigate through all the pains and joys that come with launching a company. And she came alongside some founders to do that. And then was it about a year ago, Morgan?
Yeah.
About a year ago, Carter and the team at AcreTrader snatched up Morgan from Startup Junkie, where I think they were involved. They were friends, right?
It was totally amicable.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But she joined AcreTrader at the right time, which was about 50 people, I think, when you joined. Which those of you that have ever heard me or seen me on LinkedIn, I think that's about the sweet spot for an organization to go with a full-time, highly talented people and culture executive leader. And it's no surprise that Carter and team felt like that was the priority and brought you on. So I'm going to let you tell us about AcreTrader, because you'll do a much better job than I will. and then we can get into the conversation.
Sweet. Well, thank you, Steve. And yeah, great encapsulation of my career in HR. It's been fun kind of going from practitioner to consultant back to practitioner.
Yeah.
And it's a wild ride. You learn a lot every day. But AcreTrader is a fintech farmland investing platform started here in Northwest Arkansas. The concept was birthed by our founder, Carter Malloy, when he was working in Silicon Valley, and he grew up in in Arkansas around farms, and was trying to buy a farm and realized like it's impossible to do, and this isn't a publicly available asset, and so he had the idea to diversify this, be able to allow investors to be able to diversify their portfolios by buying shares of farmland. So we work with farmers and we work with investors and help farmers buy more farms essentially, and then sell parcels of those farms to accredited investors. And so the outcome of that is that the farmers that we work with are able to farm more land and are able to, leverage a lot of tools and resources that we provide them to be more profitable, more productive with the land that they have, and then increase their crop load.
Man, the way, thank you. The way I've kind of thought about that, and I've heard Carter on a few different shows lately. Mm-hmm. By the way, if you haven't had a chance to hear Carter's story from Carter, and how his dad played a role in him making the decision to start the company, and his dad was actually the one challenging him on the business idea, which I think is just a fascinating story. But the way let me tell you how I interpret what mm-hmm. you all do, and you tell me how close I am. Farmers, which obviously built this country, right? Mm-hmm. Like the farming community and the agriculture side of our world, they're sitting on really valuable assets, mm-hmm. which is land. Mm-hmm. And they need capital to be able to continue to innovate and to farm more and to yield more. And it was hard to connect that valuable asset with capital they needed to farm. And so this is an investment platform where accredited investors can come in and say, hey, I want to help that farmer or with that piece of land, and I want to invest money. And mm-hmm. I don't want to buy the whole thing. I just want to be an investor.
Right.
And that's just a really cool idea. And I think recently you all secured a new license, mm-hmm. right?
Yep.
What was that new license? Okay. What does that mm-hmm. mean? What does that open up for you?
That just allows us to do different types of transactions and to support different types of investments. And so that will allow us to hopefully bring on bigger deals and connect that resource to more people. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit about AcreTrader, but why Morgan is here is they're a fintech company growing fast, needing talent, and they're growing very rapidly. So walk us through kind of the progression of when was the company started? You joined, there was about 50 people, I think. Mm-hmm. Like what's that journey with your journey from Startup Junkie through AcreTrader? And I know it's only been a year, but a lot has happened.
It's been a wild year.
Yes.
Yeah. We like to joke that, a year at AcreTrader is like 3 years somewhere else. So it really feels like acceleration of time and impact. And so, we are turning 5 this year as a company.
Awesome.
I'll invite you to our anniversary party.
That'd be awesome.
And so we've been around for 5 years as a company.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm just kind of riding the crest of the wave, it feels like, from a lot of years of hard work by a very small group of people.
Yeah.
So the company in 2021 grew from like 10 or 11 to, close to 50. And then at the beginning of 2022, we had about 50 full-time employees, and we're about to finish raising our Series B round of funding. And so we were ready to go, knew that we had, these resources that we needed to deploy very quickly to grow and scale and to do everything that we raised a significant amount of money to do.
Yeah.
And so last year our team nearly tripled. and
Wow.
in the course of a year. And so that's fast growth for a small company, and it was a wild ride. And what's I don't know if ironic is the right word, but we hire excruciatingly slowly. And so when I say that we tripled the company, that feels like we were just like on a mad scramble to hire people, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Our interview process is the most extrapolated and intense and elongated that I've ever been a part of or seen, much less facilitated, for every person that we hire, be that our CFO or, a entry level, marketing coordinator position. And so when I say we tripled the size of the company, we did so very, very quickly, but also very painstakingly and very, very deliberately, because every person that we hired, we knew was not just coming to do a job or to complete tasks, but this was a founding member who is building our company with us. And that is a huge opportunity and invitation, but also responsibility. And we knew from the beginning that every single person we hire, again, maybe it's a part-time intern, maybe it's our chief marketing officer, but those individuals have equal opportunity to make positive or detrimental impact on who we grow into as a company and the culture that we were building and creating. Because I think a lot of startups, when they go from those kind of like critical growth stages to like, oh, it's like me and my friend and my brother, and now, oh shit, oops, oh goodness, we have to hire a couple people.
We talked about this. I know. You're fine.
Okay.
I love it.
We swear a lot, and I was like, oh, should I censor myself?
You're
I'm
fine.
not very good at that, apparently.
I want Morgan to show up today. So
Okay,
welcome Morgan to the show.
Thank you. But oh shit, we now have to hire other people who we're not like best friends with or related to, and then going from like that 10 to 25 to 50, all of those junctures, are extremely significant. And I don't remember I distracted myself with my profanity, and I don't remember the point I was making in that.
Well, I think you were about to talk about the cultural aspect of tripling a company.
Oh,
and
that's
I was
right.
about to take that and run with it. So can I take it and run with it?
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, you bring up culture, which is obviously a big part of our conversations here. Before we jump into the AcreTrader culture, I want to know from you. I ask everyone this question. Okay. What is your definition, your working definition of culture? Not AcreTrader culture yet.
Sure.
But like, what does it mean? Because so many people have so many different ways to describe it. How do you describe it?
Okay. Great one. I think of culture as the spoken, acted, and understood manifestation of a community's values. And just as a community is comprised of individuals and can change and grow, so then
hopefully it will change and grow, right? To get healthier. Yeah.
Yeah. So then should culture, because culture is a reflection, not a projection. So it in my opinion, like true culture is again the manifestation, like what people say and act and how they think and feel of what is true and of what is of value in that community.
I love that. So I'm going to make a mental note when I go back and watch my own show and take a note because I don't have any paper and pencil. Culture is a reflection, not a projection. That's fantastic. There's my takeaway.
True culture,
for the day.
I think. I mean, I think that, and that's where it gets murky a lot of times is when companies, or businesses try to like impose culture and they, they can't
manufacture it, right? They try to manufacture it.
Yeah. It's organic. Just think of like a culture in in your yogurt. It's an organic living thing, and it is, it exists and feeds off of something else, not in and of itself.
I've never had a guest take culture scientifically to that route, and I appreciate that as well.
I got breakfast on my mind. So.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, I heard you mentioned the values of a community. I heard a perspective the other day about company values, and I want to run it by you and see if it translates in the real world at AcreTrader.
Okay.
Companies have kind of core values, and those are, I'd say most companies have those, and really healthy companies really have those. They know what they are. That's the lens they use for hiring, firing, building, promoting, compensating. So if those are core values, there are also things called accidental values, which are things that the organization appears to value, but they may not have made it all the way to the list of the 5 exclusive values
that are framed on the wall.
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully lived out also, but framed on the wall. But what I thought was fascinating is the question was, how do you know what your accidental values are? And the answer was new hires. Ask new hires, because they're the ones that know what that accidental culture is, because they're seeing it for the first time. And they're like, oh, so apparently we don't really value teamwork here, because I'm seeing for the first time how this plays out. And our values, don't say teamwork, and clearly we don't value it. So anyway, it was interesting to me that you think about a new hire coming in, they joined the company because of the values that they read about, heard about, heard stories of in the interview process.
Sure.
And then there are some accidental values that aren't intentional, but they morph over time. Now, I used a negative one, but there are also positive accidental values. At Harvest Group, it was one of the most vulnerable organizations I've ever been a part of. Like we didn't hold back. We shared our feelings, our thoughts, which built trust, which built open communication. But vulnerability wasn't a value. It was more like a mindset, which was kind of an accidental value. So at AcreTrader, you've got new hires coming in all the time because you're growing all the time. I wonder what those accidental values could be. Like they haven't earned a spot on the wall yet.
Sure.
What do you think one of those might be?
Swearing.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. That's a great question, Steve. And I don't know, I want to kind of invert this thought experiment a little bit and say that maybe a value for us at our company is impact. And so we have an expectation that new hires come and don't just, morph to our culture and community and values, but are additive. And
I've used the word accretive
impact.
when I think about culture. Is you, in fact, one of my soapboxes now is, you can't hire for culture fit.
No.
If you hire for culture fit, you're going to get more and more and more of the same and the same and the same.
Right.
You hire for a creative addition to the culture or a creative contribution to the culture.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Yes. I
Love
feel
that.
the same. And so, yes, completely agree. Yeah. So I think that in some senses, yes, there are new hire. When you first started asking this or posing this question, I thought, well, I guess it depends on how self-aware that employee is, right? Because some people are there and they're learning the ropes and they're like, what are the unspoken rules? What are the unspoken expectations? What are the unspoken things that are celebrated or rewarded or, valued? And then there are others who disrupt some of those norms. And sometimes that's a negative disruption and sometimes that's a positive disruption. And so I think that I know I'm not answering your question directly because I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about maybe this is one of our unspoken values is that we hope and expect that employees come and they do, want to kind of learn the undercurrent of the office, but they also want to make impact and
uniquely add some kind of value or some kind of impact.
And will kind of stand against that current of whatever those norms are, if they aren't healthy or productive or good.
Yeah.
Love
it.
I don't know.
Love it. The other thing I like to ask folks is, you have had a fairly short career so far. You're a real young person in the marketplace, which is awesome.
Well,
that
thank
you're in the role that you're in at such a young age, because that sends a message, I think, and it also invites in different thinking. So kudos to Carter and AcreTrader for hiring an amazing person to come in and take this really important role. But you've had experiences in the university, I believe. You've had Startup Junkie. You've had really small t-shirt company here in town. Manufacturing had some manufacturing elements to it. What do you and go back even further than that? Go back to childhood if we have to. But like,
Sure.
Where was the first time that you really stopped and said, "Wow, that's what this idea of culture is"? That's what, when people talk about the smell of the place or the culture of a company or a team or organization, can you think of a moment where it was like it caught your attention, and whether it's good or bad, it caught your attention? You're like, "Oh, this is what they mean when they say the company has a culture."
Yeah. Frankly, the first time that culture became so evident to me was in a really toxic workplace. My worst job I ever had, worst work, which shall not be named.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where I was inspired to start a career in HR.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't.
Because you thought it could be done so much better.
It was such an opportunity. I saw it as such an incredible opportunity to advocate for employees. And it feels like it's so often either relegated to being a, kind of like policy and process and paper pushing position.
And cost center, right? Like it can be seen as a cost center.
Yeah.
My other soapbox is when chief people officers or VPs of HR report to the CFO. And that's a pretty popular structure in small, fast growing organizations because they tend to get a CFO first.
Yeah.
But I think the message that sends is, it depends on the CFO. To be clear, it depends on the CFO. Yeah. But in a traditional organization, that tends to bring then a cost center mindset to the executive table, because the leader of that function is thinking about cost centers and thinking about profitability. And so anyway, this is my soapbox. I've been on a couple soapboxes today.
Good.
So you got passion about it, and it really caught your attention when you saw it not working well.
Yeah. And felt firsthand the effects of culture, those, spoken and acted and understood manifestations of values, and so, maybe we had all of the right things like framed on the wall, but man, there was no trust. There was, no integrity. There was no respect. There was, and it was, just miserable, and people were being paid well and they stayed and were awful and miserable, misery begets misery. And yeah, so I think the first time I really saw culture in action was, when it was a toxic culture and, a really unhealthy workplace where humans were not thriving and not, being cared for, as employees and team members, and then therefore not caring for one another. Yeah. And by extension, I think ultimately not caring for their job, trying to get as much, do as little to get as much, because they had no, I always say,
no incentive or motivation to make it better.
Right. Yeah. And yeah. So,
well, flash forward, you get the opportunity to be the first HR leader in an amazing, fast-growing fintech company.
Yes.
So,
wow.
Tell me what that felt like, because you came into that knowing what it felt like to be unhealthy. Now you're going to be the one writing the book. Like you're the one who's going to be bringing for the first time ever a compensation strategy to the table. You're going to be the first person to bring a focus on role clarity to the table. What was that first 6 months like as the first HR leader at a really fast growing, healthy company?
It was terrifying. And yeah, I think I swore I would never work for a startup again after consulting with startups. It's intense and a lot is.
You were allowed in the kitchen. You saw how it
Yeah,
actually
that's
worked.
right. And I just, when I was approached by AcreTrader I thought I was going to consult with them. And, my first interview I thought was like a consulting meeting where I was going to help advise them on how to structure their HR function. And, but from that first, like, actual interaction in the office, I was like, oh man, I can't not go for this. I will be a manifold better person for any amount of time that I have with these people, because the caliber of humans in that company at that point was so high. And every person that I interacted with, from an assistant to our CEO or COO, was alive and engaged and curious and terrified and also brilliant. And I thought, oh my gosh, those are all the things I ever wanted to be also. And I felt like I had so much to offer in one hand. And, I like, we like to say at AcreTrader that we hire people who bet on themselves, and who, know that they're going to show up and rise to the challenge, even if they don't know what that challenge entails. And so in one hand, I was like, man, I've got so much to offer and I have so much to learn. And that to me felt like the full cup, that tension, that constant tension, and that, that excitement of like, man, I'm going to show up and I'm going to bring my best self and hopefully, just add and change and transform. And at the same time, oh my God, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
They're going to find out at some point that I don't know what I'm
doing. Yeah, absolutely. So for 6 months, and still to this day, I mean, I don't like, I learn every day, and I learn the most from my team. That you
do have a really good team.
I have
a tight knit team right around you. That's good,
man. Yeah, and I can see all the ways that I have changed and grown as a person, as a leader, as a professional in the past year. But yeah, so I still couldn't tell you that I feel much different now, a year and a quarter in, than I did, a quarter in. It's still intense. It's still overwhelming.
Well, it hasn't gotten easier because it hasn't gotten any smaller.
That's right. Yeah, we haven't slowed down.
Yeah.
And the problems, the bigger we get and the more kind of like surface level boxes we check off, the deeper some of the challenges get. And so it's I wouldn't be anywhere else. But I think what I signed up for was doing something hard with incredible people.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is one of the most important things that I do is ensure that, that we are still hiring those incredible people, and we're doing it well and doing it right. And then we are supporting those incredible people.
Yeah. Man.
So that we can do hard things. That's real awesome. Hard things.
That's awesome. Well, hey, so you've got a unique opportunity, and some of the folks that join us on the call are in that entrepreneur startup mentality, if not actually in one of those organizations.
Yeah.
So you just lived through year one of a 5-year-old company having a senior HR person at the table.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be, let's talk for a second to the founders out there, the Carter Malloys and the Wings, who are building cool companies and are hiring their 20th, 25th person. Yeah. What is one thing that you think, based on your experience at AcreTrader, every company going from 50 plus has to do to protect their culture? Like, what is one thing that you're like, man, I'm going to do this at every company I'm ever at. I'm going to do this. I'm going to advise every founder I ever get to advise to do this. What's that one thing? And then is there anything you did that you're like, man, that was a waste of time, or man, that was a disaster. Don't do that again. Or man, they weren't ready for this, or we were late to this. Like, what's the one thing you're going to tell people to do and the one thing you're never going to repeat?
Lots of the latter category. I mean, yeah, lots of things that I've done wrong. One of our core values is mistakes happen, use them to get better. And I feel very lucky to work in a place where obviously we don't want to be sloppy.
Yeah.
And I don't ever intend to execute something with mistakes, but boy, it's, we learn so much, I think, more from what we missed than what we hit the first time.
Do you have a process as a company to unpack things that didn't work, or unpack things? Walmart has this, the world famous COE process, the correction of errors process, after every major merchandising event, after every big initiative. Do you all, if you have that value of mistakes happen, use them wisely or learn from them?
Yeah, use them to get better.
Use them to get better. Do you have is there a thing inside the company that says, hey, we're going to unpack this last initiative and try to figure out what didn't work and how to do it better?
So officially and branded, no. I think it manifests itself differently in different teams and with different types of mistakes. So we have a very, fast feedback environment. Managers are taught and trained, and employees, the feedback goes up and down and cross-functional, that you're expected to address something within 24 hours. So that is the expectation. And if you don't do that, then that is a failure on your part to do your job.
So is that an unstated part of the culture, or do you have in your handbook this is our policy? Yeah. You address things within 24 hours.
It's a part of our training and manager training. And we, go over it, reiterate that at stand up, our weekly, all team meeting. And, and so it's a very, that is a very vocalized expectation.
Love it.
So that happens universally across the company. And then we have, something called Start, Stop, Continues, which are monthly, where both, if I'm your boss, then I bring
I would love it
something.
If you're my boss. That would be amazing.
I don't know. Talk to my team first. Something for me to start doing, stop doing, and continue doing, and vice versa. And then we've taken that a step further, and each party brings something that they're sharing that they have identified in themselves that they're going to start, stop, and continue doing.
Yeah.
So we practice and we require a lot of personal responsibility and self-awareness and
self-reflection, right? Or self-evaluation.
Yes, this is something that we train employees to do, and are working on training employees to do more and more, and then requiring that feedback. So there are, it's a high value expectation, and then we actually have created contexts to solicit that feedback, and that is that's a requirement. That's a part of every manager's job to provide, to give, and to receive feedback. And then in terms of more formal processes for owning up to, or for identifying mistakes and kind of what we would do differently next time. Again, I think it varies a little bit from team to team. So on the dev teams, they have scrums and stuff,
action reviews and sprint reviews and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, and so that's definitely very built into their processes. And then on my team, we have with specifically if there's ever a termination situation, there's a process that we follow, just kind of outlining what happened, when it happened, where it happened, and it usually involves some, follow up with a manager and things like that.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Thank you.
I feel like I only answered part of that question.
Well, I think you answered both halves of the question in the same examples. So one example was what didn't work that you won't do again, and you gave us ideas of how you handle things that don't work. At AcreTrader, and then but how you do that is something you would tell founders they should be doing, right? Is the reviewing, after action review kind of things, and stop, start, continues, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the best teacher you can learn from is yourself, and the things you've done wrong, and the things that you thought about doing but didn't, and So I think. Oh, I know. The other thing I was going to say, the first part of your question is was about, how do we protect culture as it grows from that 25 to 50. And I think what I would tell founders is, as you do make these kind of critical growth steps, is to don't protect culture. Culture should not be frail. It should not be something that needs to be enclosed in a glass case and preserved. It's living and it's breathing and it's growing and it's dynamic. And a strong, rich, healthy culture absorbs lots of change and absorbs and can withstand a lot of transition and growth. And so I would encourage founders and leaders in quickly growing companies to lean into that growth mindset, not just in your teams and not just in your processes, but in your culture, and how just as your team and your culture and your outputs grow, or I said culture in that, but your culture should grow in the same way and not be this, stagnant thing. And just as, like I said, I feel like it's a reflection. Culture is a reflection of the community. As the community grows and changes, so should the culture. Yeah. And I think what I've seen the most, even as a consultant for companies in these, critical growth stages, was there was this unhealthy, clinging to what was perceived as culture. And maybe that wasn't as much culture, when there were 5 of us in a garage and we, could make whatever jokes and wear whatever we want. And maybe that wasn't as much, and things are changing, and then people lament that change because it's not like it used to be. Maybe that wasn't as much culture as it was just habits. And so really focusing on culture being a growing, strong, robust thing that is alive and shouldn't be protected or preserved.
Man, so you just challenged me right there, and I appreciate that. I spent 7 years in a company that had the strongest culture I'd ever experienced in my whole career. And I would say for my first 5 years there, I spent a lot of time thinking about how to protect it, how to protect the culture. Yeah. And towards the end, I really started, I guess it was my own journey around DE&I, but this idea of you have to bring in different ideas, new ideas, and that will impact your culture. It will. Shifting from a protect the culture at all costs to strengthen the culture at all costs is how I internalize what you just walked us through. But I love the way you said it. It's it's not something to cling to or to protect, which is hard, I think, for companies that have strong cultures. They think their job is to protect what is already strong. And I love the challenge you just gave us, which is it's a living thing. It has to change. It has to evolve. I think the challenge is it's got to evolve in a way that is consistent with your values. Yep. Because when it veers off of that course, it starts to become unhealthy. It starts to become disruptive for disruption's sake and not for the health or the long-term longevity. But,
well, and it's good for bottom lines too. I mean, there's been so many studies out there that we can look up that say, a more diverse leadership team tends to have a more profitable company. Yeah. And so we're seeing that impact. And that's something that we think about all the time is we're not just, we think about diversity very broadly. We want people who have, diversity of educational backgrounds, diversity of thought, diversity of experience, because that's how you get a richer, more robust and more complex perspective on every problem or every hopeful solution that you're working towards. And I think I think that culture is the same way. It is enriched when it is fostered and grown. Yeah.
Okay. For our second to last question, I'm going to take you way down into the weeds. Can you give me a specific example of a thing or a benefit or an aspect of your culture that you think is really unique to AcreTrader? And get super specific.
Sure. The first thing that came to my mind, so I'm going to go with it, is curiosity. And so we are incredibly curious group of people. To the extent that it can get bothersome and nosy sometimes. So everyone wants to know what's going on and why and who made that decision and what considerations were taken into that decision and who it's going to impact. And they want to know about the people they work with, and they want to know about where we're going as a company. I think I would say a spirit of curiosity is encouraged, and people are seldom told to mind their own business or to stay in their lane, or to, mind their own P's and Q's. And that kind of interest in, and it ultimately translates into accountability,
transparency and accountability.
Is very, very encouraged, and I think we see that play out in having a super high feedback work environment that is uncomfortable often. I mean, I spend a lot of time, supporting employees in how to have direct conversations with people. These are things that, and then translate into like their friendships and relationships, and just, how to act in the best interest of someone else when that person might be representing themselves in a way that they don't want to, is less than in their best interest. And I think encouraging curiosity, we talk about intellectual curiosity. And so when we interview, that's something we talk about, like, hey, what's the last rabbit hole you went down? What's, what is the last thing that you've read recently or listened to? Or, I like to say, if you could start another career, what would you, and go to school and weren't worried about how much money you make, what would you study? And so we love people who are just, who are curious and who are learners. But we want that to be applied to the business and to every aspect of the business. And I'm not gonna lie, it gets annoying sometimes. Like everybody's that involved.
And exhausting for you, because in your function, you're the conduit with people, like dealing with all the people.
Yeah.
And if all the people are always curious about what's happening all the time.
Yeah. It's so challenging, but I want that challenge. Like I want that accountability, and I want that tension between, where people want to know because they're invested. Like we've done that to ourselves very deliberately. Like we've hired people and said, you are building this company. This is yours. This is the direct impact that you are having on us and on where we're going. And therefore people are very invested and want to know about decisions that are being made, not just as it impacts them, but as it impacts the whole company. Yeah. And to me, that feels ultimately really reassuring, because I know that there are going to be so many eyes and hands on anything that, I propose or I roll out, that also ultimately translates to a shared sense of responsibility. And, if this doesn't go well, then not only did I miss something critical, but a lot of other people did too. And that's not to absolve me of, what's ultimately my responsibility by any means, but it does provide me with a safety net, because I certainly, there's so much I haven't done before. And so the more really smart people we can have looking at a problem or a process or something that I'm doing, whether or not they're experienced in it or not, the better the outcome will be.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I have one last question, but I'm going to hold it until after we ask or take questions from the Zoom call. Matt, do we have any questions? If we don't, that's cool.
Yes, from our friend Mike. It says, if you could provide a one-sentence job description of your role, what would that be?
Mike Grain, you're in my brain. I just gave a talk yesterday to a company's mid-level management group, kind of the high potential folks in the organization. And I challenged them to have a role tweet description. And what I mean by that is Andy Stanley calls it a one-sentence role description. I call it a role tweet description because I want it to be in 180 characters or less.
Okay.
So you can't have a sentence that's like 4 paragraphs long.
Oh, yeah, because I would.
I know. So what would your one sentence role description be? If you had to tweet your role description, what do you think it would be?
Okay.
I know I have mine from Harvest, but I want to hear yours first.
Oh, you're not gonna like give me a sample?
I'll give you mine.
Okay.
And I think the cool part about this exercise is that it's not intended to be 100% exhaustive and accurate. It's intended to reflect your personality, but also capture the essence of what you're paid for, like what you're to do. So mine, I challenged Harvest Group to do this as well. And I will tell you, I didn't get 100% participation and buy-in. But a lot of people did find it helpful to try to boil down the essence of their job into one sentence. Mine at Harvest Group was to love our people and live our culture, period. And there's a comma in there, love our people, comma, live our culture, because it's only one sentence. But really my job was to know the organization well enough that I could love every person uniquely, and they should feel that love from me. That should result in them feeling like they belong in the company, not just from me, but like I want my attitude to be, I love every person here uniquely. And I need to be an example and encourage other examples of people to live out the culture. And so mine was love our people, live our culture.
Okay.
One sentence.
Okay. Forming this as I am speaking these words.
I can smell it turning. I can smell it burning.
So my job is to, I'm trying to think about syntax here. My job is to support business objectives by supporting the people that our business is built of.
Okay. Can you end with a proposition? Is that a grammatically accurate thing? I've always been told you can't, but I always do because I'm not smart enough to reword a sentence. I love it. So the keywords there were support, right? And that's twofold. It's the company's business objectives, right? So fun in HR circles that folks sometimes don't connect their work to the business objectives. So you did that in the first sentence. Yeah,
I feel like my primary role is to like my job, everyone's job is to ensure that we are in business tomorrow. And so I can protect the most people's jobs by making sure our company is successful. And I make sure our company is successful by making sure that our employees are supported, equipped, empowered, challenged, engaged.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for that question, Mr. Grain.
Yeah, good one.
Appreciate that. Okay, my last question, and then we can stop the recording and you can swear all you want and we'll go offline with the folks on the Zoom call. I ask everyone this, and I gave you a heads up that this was coming because it is my favorite question.
Okay.
I'm a huge music guy, love songs. I think there's a song for everything. I think I can tie back all of the milestones in my life to a song.
Really?
When I hear it on the radio, I can like go back to that moment. So,
see, I'm a smell.
Oh wow,
olfactory triggers.
Oddly interesting.
It's okay. Yeah, weird.
I'd rather have a song than a smell, but okay. Okay.
It's way better.
So if you could pick a song that captures the essence of the AcreTrader culture.
Yeah.
And some people take this question as a lyrical play, like the words have to make sense. Other people take it as a feel of the song, an energy level of the song. I don't care which one you do. If you had a song that captured the essence of the AcreTrader culture, what would it be?
All right. So you did give me a heads up.
I did.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve did give me a heads up. And it's a good thing because I am basically musically illiterate. And I'm one of those people that I'm like, I don't know this song. Oh yeah, maybe I know this song, but I don't know who it's by.
When you hear it, you know you like it, but you don't know who sings it. You don't know what it's called.
Right. And I'm a passive listener, not an active listener. to music in conversations. I'm a very active listener,
are.
everyone, I promise.
Yes, you are.
And so what I did is I asked the team.
Good.
And I have responses from about 9 different people in the company, from an intern all the way up to our CEO. So we happen to have we use Slack and we have a random channel. It's perfect for this sort of inquiry.
Okay, before you tell me, did you get 9 distinct answers, or was there
no overlap?
Answer?
No overlap whatsoever.
All right, good.
Okay, so we have hip to be square.
Here you listen to the news. That's interesting.
Okay. Daddy won't sell the farm because we help him get investors.
That's awesome. That's out of my genre specialty, so I don't know who sings it.
And then we have It's Corn, the song of favorite riff. It was very TikTok famous.
Yeah. The guy, the little boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Then farming.
It's Corn. That's fantastic for AcreTrader.
we have a lot of corn farms.
Okay.
Farming by Danny Kaye.
Okay.
Party Hard.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a country song called Buy Dirt.
Okay. BUY, which makes sense for AcreTrader.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Yep. And then Dirt by Florida Georgia Line. And then let's see. What else can I do from Encanto?
Okay. Love it. Love it. That's why I do this.
That's I know it's not one song, but I didn't feel equipped to represent the company culture in music alone.
I love it. But you know what you have there in that gold
playlist?
line of the list is the next all hands meeting. You've got the playlist.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening today.
Before and after the meeting.
We have a 5:00 happy hour, and it's a highly competitive dip contest. And so I have that's going to be my playlist for that happy hour today.
Morgan Scholz, thank you so much for hanging out with me on the show today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming. Thank you all for hanging out with us in the chat. And we're gonna sign off here in a second. Be sure and go check out the Conversations on Retail website. Not only does it have all of these conversations that we've had with people and culture leaders and founders about leadership and culture, but there's a ton of content out there about supply chain. Our friend Mr. Mike Grain does a great job on the supply chain side. There's lots of discussions about digital commerce. So just go check out Conversations on Retail. That's where you'll find us, but that's also where you can find lots of other cool, helpful information about navigating this crazy world of retail that we love so much. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.